So, I made a video a while ago about how, what pronunciation, accents, pronunciation system you should use when, or I think you should use when, or the system that I use when reading Latin. So there are two basic systems. First of all, what is the difference between a pronunciation system and an accent? And I suppose the big problem. There's two pronunciation systems. Is the ecclesiastical pronunciation, which is more or less identical to modern Italian. It's probably the one you might be familiar with if you've not studied a lot of Latin before. It's how Latin's often pronounced in Latin phrases are pronounced in English and most other languages. So stuff like dulce et decorum est, that's the ecclesiastical pronunciation, whereas the which is a line from Horace, Latin poet, more the modern, the other pronunciation, which I'll get to, would be dulce et decorum est. So the C's, it's a small difference, but the C is slightly different. It's not a ch, it's just a k sound. So the second pronunciation is the reconstructed classical pronunciation. This is the pronunciation of the... To be fair, I'm not really sure the actual timeline, but I'm gonna in my head, it's the pronunciation system of around the beginning of the imperial periods, end of the Republic. This is a golden age of poetry. That's the kind of period where they use, in my eyes, is the language of Cicero or Virgil. So, what is the difference between a pronunciation system and an accent? And it's quite a small difference, but I think it's worth exploring. Because I think the big problem with Latin and any dead language is that you can't really study, you don't really have an accent in the same way you do with a modern accent. Because so much of the language is constructs, and we have no recording of the language in its classical form, so everything is effectively made up. Everything is to an extent some form of guesswork with by looking at ancient scholarship on how the Latin alphabet was first created, and using logical things to work it out. And we can be very accurate about how Latin would have sounded, but there's no way to really know to a fully comprehensive extent. Like, think about how much you have to know about. Think about someone who's studied English for, let's say, 5. They're fluent in English. They've studied it for a very long time. You'll notice they still have quite a bit of an accent, often. Not always, but 99% of the time you can tell if someone's a non-native English speaker, and they might have a harder time understanding different accents. My accent, for example, is slightly quite strong English accent. I find that harder than like a Californian accents, a standard American accent, because those accents are more common in TV and media. So, what does this tell us? Why I'm getting on this tangent? The point I'm trying to make is that even with a great knowledge of a modern language, there's a level of accent that is still out of your of perceiving an accent that's slightly out of your reach. If a person can't speak in a perfect English accent, I would argue it's because it's for the same reason that they can't distinguish certain accents as well. It's because there are certain things that they grew up speaking of the language, and as a result, their ears are tuned to certain things and untuned certain things relative to their language, and untuned to certain things in the English language. So, to give you an example, like Italians will often put little schwa sounds in between words in English. So it's a bit of a classic example. So they'll say stuff like, "It is a good day today," like that little is a sort of sound in between is. I wouldn't say that, but in Italian, the phonetic system would never have the phonetic system that they're used to when speaking Italian. It's still sort of half thinking with that system, which is why. So they're not as tuned into the accent as they could be, and fair play to them. There has to be. But the point I'm making is that there's such fine detail to go into with accents that you can't really establish it accurately in a dead language, and this is what a lot of scholars, a lot of whom I really respect, like what's he called, Polymathy. I guess it's about the only way. Yeah, Polymathy. Will say yes, we can get a truly native accent as an accent. I mean, I don't think you can. I don't think it matters necessarily. So to go back to my point, I don't think you can have an accent per se, but I think you can have a pronunciation system. You need to have some system of translating the words on the page, which signify meaning, into sounds, like a consistent way of transliterating the words on the page into sounds. And for this you have two systems. You have the ecclesiastical and the classical reconstructed. So it's a really interesting discussion, which one should you use? Now, I think the arguments for the classical pronunciation is that it's the truest form of the language. With poetry, you're getting much more accurate. The words are sounding much more accurate to how the onomatopoeia and stuff is preserved. And I've got a lot of time for that. However, I think the problem is that is always guesswork to some degree anyway. And we'll never know like what exact accents was prevalent at the time of the person writing, or how much of a difference that would have made to the poetry in the first place. And the line of arguments in favour of the ecclesiastical pronunciation is that well, people say it sounds nicer. I disagree. I think it sounds tacky, you know. I think if you want to have an ecclesiastical pronunciation, if you want that kind of sound, just speak Italian like a normal person. Anyway, the argument that people make is that, the argument you could make is that this is the pronunciation that's been preserved of Latin through the Catholic Church. Because that's why it's called ecclesiastical pronunciation, because it's pronunciation used in the Catholic Church.